Well, it was the split that broke hearts across the globe. 50 years ago, the Beatles, formally disbanded, now recently discovered documents shed some new light on the legal issues and conflicts that led to the band's demise.
Yeah, music and culture journalist Poppy Reid joined us in the studio with some revelations. Now, these documents have been untouched since 1974. What was going on in those years?
Well, really, the tail end of the 60s and the start of the 70s marked the start of the end of the Beatles. You know, you had John Lennon leaving the band in 1969 and then Paul McCartney in 1960, and all of the band members were really doing a lot of solo projects around that time whilst trying to manage this disbandment. It was very complex, and that's what these documents delve into. They kind of go into the complexities behind what was happening with the Beatles at that time. And interestingly, it took such a long time for the band to organise their breakup. It wasn't until December 1974 until they announced that separation.
What were some of the most shocking revelations in these documents?
Well, I think there was a lot of stuff around the breakup that's public knowledge, but the reason why these documents are so good is because it goes behind the scenes. You've got affidavits in there, you've got meeting minutes, you've got quotes from all the lawyers and the legal representatives. You know, there's a quote in there from one lawyer where it's quite clear that there was a mismanagement of money, there was tax funds owed, there was missing funds. There's a quote that says, "Where is the money?" You know, there's talk about Ringo Starr and him not having a proper contract with the Beatles. Paul McCartney talks about in there about how he's suing the band because he wants the management to be different. He didn't want it to be Alan Klein. He wanted it to be his father-in-law, an entertainment lawyer at the time. But for me, the biggest issue in here, and kind of the revelation for me, was because it was so complex, because there were so many tentacles to the Beatles that led to this, you know, the big octopus that is the Beatles that we know, it changed the music industry. You know, like because it was complex, we had lawyers and we had managers going and restructuring how we do these deals with bands. And we also had artists looking at it and going, oh, maybe I need to pay more attention to these deal structures. So even towards the end, they were very progressive in changing the industry.
And Poppy, does what's in there change or challenge any of the theories about why the band split?
I mean, there were obviously the huge legal challenges, but I'd love to know from you two, why do you think the Beatles split? What do you think the reason was?
What do you think?
I think most people think it's Yoko, don't they?
Well,
she was the
I think
splinter.
if it's a split that big, it has to be a combination of things, and perhaps that was the last straw.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of theories around it that Yoko Ono was, you know, the last straw, right? But I actually think that these documents challenge that theory, and I think that it's a bit unfair about all the vitriol that she received around the breakup because, as you can see from the documents, it was just so complex and just so legally binding.
Yep. Poppy Reid, fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.